Pakistan's new soft power. I think it's going to be a very fascinating session because it's a topic which is quite open-ended, and I think we can cover quite a bit of distance trying to figure out what is the soft power that we have and how best to utilize it. So I have a lot of questions in my mind, and I think because we have a panel of experts which is eminently suited to speak on this particular topic, I think we are going to have a very thought-provoking session. So without further ado, let me introduce my panelists for today. Our first panelist is Mr. Ishrat Hussain. He is the head of the Institute of Business Administration, one of the most eminent economists of Pakistan. Second panelist is Begum Abida Hussain. She needs no introduction, one of the foremost political figures of Pakistan, who's also recently authored a very readable book on the politics of Pakistan and sum total of her experiences. And our last panelist is Mrs. Ameena Saiyid, who's the managing director of Oxford University Press, and who's done tremendous amounts of work to make these events possible. So thank you very much, all of you. As we go into this topic, the first thing that comes to my mind is that this whole concept of soft power has been probably popularized by this gentleman called Joseph Nye, who works at the Harvard University and who originally wrote a book in the 1980s titled The Soft Power. And he introduced this concept in international politics of how the states can increase their influence by using the soft power that they have. And then over the years, he's honed this concept even more. And essentially, if I were to define what he means by soft power, it is all the means that a country has to be able to attract other people to its culture and to its policies. Now, how does that happen? Both America and perhaps to a large extent India have practiced the art of soft power very effectively. What can we do? I think that's the primary question that I'm going to put in front of my audience. So, Dr. Ishrat, if I were to start with you, would you agree with the definition of Joseph Nye, and does that apply to Pakistan?
Thank you, Fahd. I think Joseph Nye has four major components of power structure. He starts with the military, political, economic, and then he comes to the soft power. And that is a very open-ended, all-encompassing kind of category. We all know that what the military, political, and economic powers parameters are and what the definition of these are. But soft power is something which is still to be defined in a very precise term. I would submit that the concept of soft power would vary from each country to another. I would go with Pakistan's assets, which can help in defining a soft power. It is the cultural and civilizational center of the Buddhist culture in Kandahar, with Mohenjo-daro and Harappa civilizations. It is the pilgrimage center for the Sikhs of all over the world, not only India. It has the ecotourism potential, which is very much in demand by those who have been to Pakistan, to the northern areas. It has produced people like Rahat Fateh Ali, who along with Peter Gabriel have made Pakistan known all over the world. We have people like Fawad Khan, Ali Zafar, Rahat Fateh Ali, and Atif Aslam, who are making waves in India. A new television channel in India, which is Zee Zindagi, has started telecasting Pakistan's dramas, and every time I go to India, to any part, people are glued from 8 to 11. We have the potential of India-Pakistan cricket being the largest crowd attractor, not only within Pakistan and India, but everywhere else. These are the elements which can actually form the contours of what I consider the soft power. I give the example of my own institution. We have established strategic partnership with the Indian School of Business, with the SP Jain Institute in Bombay, and the Institute of Management Technology in Ghaziabad. And we have exchanged students and faculty. And the students from India who come to us, or faculty, they become the best ambassadors of Pakistan, because there are a lot of myths which are exploded when they come and interact. Their image was that all IBA girls would be in burqas and veils, and they will not be mixing with the students, and they will be segregated. That is the kind of hypothesis with which they begin in. When they come and they say there's not much difference between our campus life and your campus life, and our students who go back to these institutions and come back become the best ambassadors of India. So this kind of exchange has created those feelings of understanding on the basis of which better relations can be forged between the two countries. And if you have a common history, common political platform which united us, a common infrastructure, the whole South Asia region would be something which Pakistan can attract towards its shores, and then the world will go around. So we don't have to be ambitious. We can start with our own region, which is South Asia, and attract people to come and visit and take part in many of these same things which we are engaged in. And the world will get around, and this will have concentric circles. There will be more Asians coming in than the Europeans will come in. Of course, the security problem is a major issue, but we have brought in people, and once they have come here, even the Americans, they are willing to come back. It is the first time resistance, mental resistance, which is really creating the barriers in Pakistan. But if you give them a whole package, which also includes the security arrangement and the coordination, I think these kind of hurdles can be eased, and a beginning can be made.
So tourism, in many ways, we have various ways and means by which we can attract people, and that could be one source of soft power. Begum Hussain, what in your opinion are some other aspects of soft power that Pakistan can display?
Well, as I see it, soft power really stands for cultural expression in its various forms. There is a whole spate of literature, books that are coming out that are challenging and exciting. We have a very strong tradition of music, and our Sufi music is particularly appreciated. Dr. Ishrat just made mention of Nusrat Fateh Ali, and there are other contemporary qawwals and musicians, and then our folkloric traditions are extremely strong. We also have now a very vibrant tradition of art, that is to say of paintings and sculpture and ceramics. A lot of work is being done in these fields. Much of this work is exhibited locally, but then there are some painters who are appreciated and have an audience overseas as well. And then we have, of course, a magnificent tradition of embroidery and stitchcraft, We have, in that comes our the making of our handmade shoes, for instance, which are increasingly popular. We have, along with our various traditions of working leather, we have saddlery as a skill, and saddlery is very much in demand from here in North America as well as in some countries of Europe. So whether we look at it from the point of view of projecting the way we are and what we do, what skills we have, whether it is with a view to increasing our exports, whether it is with a view to luring people to, for purposes of tourism to our country, all of this is unfortunately, very regrettably, since the last at least decade, shadowed by this image of terrorism and extremism which stalks our land. So this is the downside, and this is a deterrence to many of our gifted people who have a lot to offer to the world. In this very hall, before our panel discussion, there was a presentation by a young woman called Ambar Sami of jewelry, and she makes kundan in a very novel way, and has found not only a niche market in Pakistan, but also apparently her work has been deeply appreciated in India. Now this is the sort of thing which is there. It will have a natural growth. I don't believe that with anything aesthetic that you can force the pace of development. It has to be a natural process, and it's on its way.
But Mrs. Ameena, Sayyid, in this respect, then, you know, we've listed out many things, but are they really having an impact? If you were to look at it from a perspective of a non-Pakistani, would he or she actually feel the impact of the soft power? Are we failing in projecting it?
I think we are, because I feel that we have an enormous literary and cultural heritage. There's no shortage of artists, of performing artists, of painters, of writers in Pakistan, and I think that the problem is that we are not projecting it. I mean, to give you an example, I was in London in the last few times that I've been there. The Nehru Centre over there is the most active cultural centre in the UK. You go there, they will give you a calendar of events for the whole year with Indian artists, performers, writers. They have book launches. And I went to the Pakistan High Commissioner. I said, why don't you set up a Jinnah Centre here in London? And in those days, actually, the house that Jinnah had lived in was up for sale. I said, please buy that house. Set it up as a cultural centre. And I was told, no, it costs millions of pounds. So I said, what's millions of pounds for the government of Pakistan? We can afford it, please. But, you know, obviously, it wasn't bought. And as you know now, a statue is being set up of Gandhi in the Westminster Square outside Parliament, where there are only two other statues, Nelson Mandela and Churchill. And who's paying for this statue? The Indians. Not, and funds were raised for it. It's cost again over £1 million. And they raised funds and they got it. Why can't we do that? Raise funds, or at least get matching funds from the government and set up these cultural centers, because I mean we have the best artists, but where do they perform? Similarly, I think I went to the Frankfurt Book Fair, and there was the theme that year was India, and there were about 50 or 60 Indian authors who were there. A whole hall was reserved for Indian publishers. So I went to the organizers of the Frankfurt Book Fair and I said, please make Pakistan a theme. Just like you've done, because every year a different country is used it. And they said, we are happy to do that, but the Indian government has paid for this. They have sent all the artists. And so if the Pakistan government is prepared to help us fund it, we will go ahead and do it. So I think it's really a question of projecting and of impact. Just a very quick example, I was told by the Turkish government that if you want to translate any of our Turkish writers into English or Urdu, we will pay for the translation and we will not charge any royalties. Why can't we do that for our brilliant writers? Why can't we have their books, pay for translation of their books?
So, Dr. Ishrat, whose responsibility is it? I mean, we all know that we have certain avenues for projecting our soft power. It's this literature festival in itself is part of the soft image that we can project. Is it again the government? Like everything else, it is the responsibility of the government and it is failing?
I don't think we have to completely abandon our own responsibility as citizens of Pakistan. And we established the National Academy of Performing Arts. I remained chairman of that board for 6 years. And we established private-public partnership, where the government of Pakistan is providing an annual grant to support the center. But we were raising money from the other corporate houses, from the donors, from individuals. Then, because of that, we were able to finish our theater, which was under construction. And every evening, we are having some performances other and collecting revenues from there. So there are ways in which you can have this public-private partnership in which both these sectors do. If we have this dependence syndrome on the government, this is very erratic. One government may come in and may patronize the literary festivals or the performing arts or art galleries, and the second government comes in and just puts in a stop. So for the continuity and consistency, we have to have a different model whereby every one of us who is really enlightened and who believes, like what Ameena and Hussain said, in the cultural heritage of Pakistan, to showcase it. And I think that's the only way we can do it. But I don't believe that we should just abandon our own responsibilities and rely only on the government.
So in that respect then, Begum Abida, if I take this concept a little forward and inject it into the art of statecraft, when we're talking about soft power, power in itself means that you're influencing somebody else. And if you take the example of the Americans or the Indians or the Europeans, through their soft power, they influence other nations. They try and get their own way through attracting them. All these elements that we're talking about, are they enough, if utilized properly, to influence world public opinion in favor of Pakistan?
Yes, indeed, I do believe it's enough. I think that what we have to offer is diverse and interesting in many ways. So it is enough to offer. It's a question of generating the interest. And here, when you talk about responsibility, it is indeed the leading responsibility is that of government. But then our institutions, including our educational institutions, also have a role to play, and a very vibrant civil society with its many different associations and organizations. One of the areas in which I think we have quite a lot to offer is food. Now, for instance, chapli kebab is something which is exciting. It's exciting to the palate, and there are not enough outlets. For a country where, for instance, McDonald's is a roaring business, our own foods, although we have a culture of restaurants now emerging, but we don't have enough of it in other parts of the world. When I was for a short while living in Washington, the Afghan tikka place was a very, very popular location. And I would keep trying to persuade Pakistanis to set up restaurants, to consider this as a line of enterprise, etc. But there was not much happening there. There may be a little more in the last, that might have emerged in the last 2 decades, but not nearly enough. And then we have a very important area in which we have a lot to offer, and that is our animals. We have a wonderful equine tradition. Tent pegging, for instance, is an extremely exciting sport. We failed to get tent pegging included, for instance, in the Olympics. We failed to popularize tent pegging.
Was there an effort made?
Sorry?
Was there an effort made to do that?
I think some weak effort was made by at some point, but not good enough. We have this wonderful equestrian tradition of all sorts of skills with horses, dancing horses and so on. And then we have a wide range of different breeds of bovines, of cattle, from very big, strong oxen to dairy cattle, our own indigenous breeds. The Sahiwal, for instance, is very competitive with many of the better breeds in all parts of the world. I visited a ranch in California about 4 years ago, which stocked 100,000 head of cattle. And when I asked them whether they had heard about the Sahiwal, they said, that's Zebu cattle. We're very interested. Now, where do we get it? So we spoke in our embassy. We suggested to our trade commissioner there that he should get in touch with this Harris Ranch, and at this end I said that I would be happy to share data, etc. But nothing really came of it. There is invariably some amount of laxity in what we ought to do. Another very popular thing is, which is quite unique to Pakistan, is truck art. But there again, we have failed to mount a full exhibition of truck art. And most importantly, where Dr. Ishrat Hussain started his conversation, Gandhara. You see, for the Japanese Buddhists particularly, the Gandhara civilization and its various manifestations in Pakistan hold tremendous interest. But then again, we have not been able to develop and grow on that. I recall about 20 years ago or so, there was an ambassador of Japan to whom I suggested that he play a role in encouraging young Japanese to come for adventure tourism to Pakistan. So he asked me to write up a paper, and I did, and rafting down the Indus caught the imagination of some young Japanese who came out, and they were picked up by dacoits somewhere in Sindh. They were recovered, and the dacoits wanted money, which some of us got together and managed to pay, so the Japanese did not have to. But it was a setback. So we have these, we lurch from one unpleasant episode to another. Nonetheless, the projection of soft power is very, very, I think, important for improving Pakistan's image and for attracting people from all over the world to visit us.
Let me play the devil's advocate, Mrs. Sayyid. All these are well and good, but when we are talking about soft power globally, it's very difficult to imagine that these things would be able to compete with the popular culture which is coming our way, whether it's coming from North America or Europe or their movies or their music, or even in our region. I mean, that is the kind of soft power which is influencing millions across the world. Are we competing on the same wicket? All these things that we're talking about, do they even stand a chance in front of the soft power that is surrounding us from all over?
You know, I think we do, but we have to work at it. We have to invest in it. I'll give you a couple of examples. For example, Qawwali. Now, Qawwali is very popular, but my only question is, or the problems that I have with Qawwali is that there is no gender balance in it. I haven't come across women Qawwals, and I think it's very important that we promote this kind of, woman power as well. Now, I know that some of our Qawwals had gone to the UK, and they have a huge potential. I mean, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan was a celebrity, a rock star. Now, Channel 4 wanted to have a session of Qawwali. So they met these Qawwals, and they refused to have to record them. They said, what are they eating? What is that red dribble coming out of their mouths, and why do they keep spitting? They said, we can't show that on television. So we have to actually train and work on this so that we present at least, a civilized image. I'm sorry to have to mention this, but we have to groom these people who are going to.
Does the private sector need to come into this? Because I think we put in too much focus on the government, and we know how incompetent it is.
No, absolutely, and I agree with Dr. Ishrat Hussain. The private sector has to. I mean, Coke Studio is doing a brilliant job. They're discovering new singers and artists and projecting them. I think the literature festivals that are being held in Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, now there's one in Faisalabad. I hope this becomes a movement. India has 67 literature festivals per year. We have 4. I hope that every city and town in Pakistan will have it. And the Independent covered this. They said that Karachi's answer to bombs is books. So I think, and our authors are stars. People like Kamra Shamsi, Mohsin Hamid, Mohammad Hanif. These are now internationally recognized people. You go to any bookshop in the West, you will find their books. So we have to go a long way to project these people. I think Abida Husain's book, Power of Failure, is going to project a very positive image of Pakistan around the world. It has been exported to the UK, to the US, and it will show readers over there women's empowerment in Pakistan.
So, Dr. Saab, fantastic books coming out in English, in Urdu, of course, in English, which is being read by an international audience, where our music is crossing borders, musicians doing wonderfully well in other countries, other markets. We've produced some brilliant films which have done well commercially and critically also. So the elements are there. What's the missing part?
I think there's, just like anything in Pakistan, it is the coordination failures. That's our problem. We all work in silos and compartments. We don't talk to each other. I illustrate you with a simple example of Jaipur. Jaipur is one of the most attractive places where cultural shows are held and tourists go. And this is all, integrated. The hotels are private, but they are connected with the Tourist Development Corporation of Jaipur, which gives them a calendar of events which they are organizing. Then the private performers give their calendar to the hotels. The taxi drivers are paid by these performers in order to bring the guests from these hotels. So both the government, the private hotels, the taxi drivers, the performers, they are all working in a coordinated and concerted manner. And that is what really matters. There are information failures. We have hotels in Karachi, and I asked the general manager of Sheraton, do you know that we have these plays taking place at Napa Theatre? And he says, oh, I didn't know about this. So we have to work together outside these silos, work in a coordinated manner, and stop this blame game, which has become so favorite in Pakistan that we just shift the blame to others. Let us accept our responsibility in the sphere which we are operating and try to work with others together. And I tell you, this is what's going to happen.
This is not a priority for the government, is it? Is any government, bureaucracy, the way that our governing system works, you know that very well. Are they capable of actually digesting this this knowledge, this information, and actually translating it into action? Do they have it in them to be able to do this?
Well, they're paid for it. We're one of the few governments in the world actually that have a whole ministry for culture and heritage, and it's well staffed. Let me give you an example. We had in the Lahore fort a sound and light son et lumière demonstration, very popular, very popular. In the 70s, we organized a fashion show of clothes that were made in work centers by rural women, and which were based on our traditional stitchcraft and so on. We had this very elegant event with the son et lumière complementing it. Then when in more recent times, the Prime Minister of India, Atal Bihari Vajpayee came, there was a dinner hosted by Prime Minister Sharif for him in the Lahore fort. And the location was absolutely spectacular and so on. But all of that has fallen into disuse. On the other hand, we have the food street in the near the walled city, which is a new thing, a new phenomena, very attractive, and shows Lahore off really at its best to get stunning views of the Badshai Mosque and so on. Regrettably, this bus, what's it called? The new
The Jangla bus, as they say.
Jangla bus. The metro obscures some of the view of the fort and the mosque, which is regrettable. But nonetheless, that is there. Now, we also have an organization called the Export Promotion Bureau. This is an old organization. It's very heavily staffed. And they're supposed to take Pakistani products to all industrial fairs and exhibitions all over the world, and they do indeed. But then the emphasis is always on the part of our officials on what they're going to buy to take back to the wife at home and for the kids, rather than Pakistani stuff. But there again, it has to be, the initiatives have to be taken by private enterprise, by those who have indeed something to sell. And if we go into the whole sort of vast area of tourism, we've had a Pakistan Tourist Development Corporation, which has been around also for a long time. But as Dr. Ishrat was saying, that your average 4-star, 5-star hotel have really no awareness of the cultural events going on in the city that the hotel is located in. So there is a lack of flow of information, and this needs to be examined. I think the hotel associations, for instance, need to work harder. On the positive side, you have the story of Philetes, which has been wonderfully renovated, and is indeed, it's a tribute to all the people, particularly Nayyar Ali Dada, who contributed to that. So we have the positive going on. We need to coordinate better, obviously, and we need to put our hearts into the whole effort and make it into a voluntary upsurge of a collective effort to do things for our country.
Let me try and bring the discussion to a conclusion shortly, because then I think we'll open the floor for some questions. But I think I want to have the three panelists talk about something which Dr. Ishrat Hussain wrote a couple of years ago, and I remember reading that. He wrote a column called Brand Pakistan, and how you can treat this, treat this country as a brand and sell it abroad like you sell brands. It was an eye-opening column, and I was talking to him earlier today also. The whole concept of branding Pakistan for the world. Now, before I come to him, let me just, sort of open this question to Mrs. Ameena Sayyid. Branding Pakistan means that we are expanding the definition of our soft power and trying to see what are those things that which the world could be interested in, which the world could think positively of. And this is not a new concept. For the last couple of years, governments have been trying to project a soft image of Pakistan. On the whole, are we on the net positive? Like, have we gained, are we better off in terms of defining our soft image than we were, say, a decade ago? At least, are we moving in the right direction?
Well, I think, yes, I would say so, because I think the way that our authors, our performing artists, our artists themselves, the way that they are being projected throughout the world, again by, mainly by private interests. I think they have made an impact. Now what's getting in our way is actually security. For example, I think Mohenjo-daro would attract thousands of people. I know that, people can't go there because of security and because there are no tours or package tours. Even the flights are not convenient. You can't make a day trip. So I think our museums need to be properly filled up. They're not fully equipped. But I think that, the potential, I would say, is enormous. And things are getting better, and partly because of the achievements of our artists across the board. And I do feel that these literature festivals have also done their bit. As you can see here and in the Karachi Festival, there were a lot of visitors who have come from all over the world. And I think this kind of interchange of ideas and the debates that have been held, I think that's the best way to promote our image, when people get an understanding or an insight into how people think and how they feel over here.
So things are getting better despite the government?
Well, I think despite security, I would say, despite the security situation. I'm not I'm not here to criticize the government. I think the government has an important role to play. And here, I mean, the Arts Council has been given by the Punjab government. The Punjab government has set up the Faisalabad Literature Festival. So I think they're doing their bit, but all of us together, the corporate sector has to play its role, and the government, and of course, efforts. I think together we have a great country to promote.
And when we talk about promoting the country, Dr. Ishrat Hussain, that's where we come into branding the country, as you said. Brand Pakistan. Explain to us, what do you mean when you say brand Pakistan?
For example, if you think of word association, if you think of Argentina, what do you think? Beef. That this is the best beef in the world. If you talk about Switzerland, you talk about chocolate or mountains. That word association with Pakistan, unfortunately today, is terrorism. And that is what we have to completely change. Because the word association with Pakistan is FPAK, and FPAK is all terror, extremism, fundamentalism. What can we do in order to work against this particular access baggage we have? And that is where we have to change the image of Pakistan, the brand of Pakistan. It won't happen overnight, let's not pretend. But we are a very resilient country, and I have great faith. Ameena Sayyid single-handedly has been doing this Karachi Literary Festival. The people of Karachi, despite all you hear about Karachi, come in throngs and attend these festivals. Look at this Lahore Literary Festival. We have food festival in Karachi at the Frere Hall, which is a heritage piece, and there were thousands of families which were able to come in. So the brand Pakistan is that you bring in outsiders to focus on music, art. I mean, look at Rashid Rana has created headlines in Europe because he has done a marvelous piece of collage. Imran Qureshi has won the Deutsche Bank Prize, which is a prestigious prize. Let us hope that some of our authors win Booker Man Prize. These are the kind of things which will change the image of Pakistan, the brand of Pakistan.
Dr. Abdul, final closing words before we go to Q&A about the soft power and the final thoughts.
Pakistan has a very gifted, very talented public, and a lot to offer the world by way of philosophical articulation, by way of poetry, the Sufi strand of our faith and expression, the visual arts, the performing arts. We have a very great deal to offer, and I do believe that Pakistan has a great future. Sometimes I'm questioned about it, and I say that there is a demographic shift. It's a very young nation and a vibrant nation. So the moment this terrorism story settles down, is behind us, we're going to be a big box office draw for the entire world. I do believe that people will come here in very large numbers to see us and to observe our culture and our heritage. So I look ahead with optimism. I hope it happens in my lifetime.
Ameena, final words.
Well, I think again, I feel that we have to hold on to our space. I know that space for cultural activities has been shrinking in Pakistan, but let's not wait, let's start immediately. I mean, let's reclaim this space, and we can only do it through holding a lot of cultural activities, whatever kinds that we do, performances, readings, theatre, dance. Let's have these all over Pakistan. And also, if people are afraid to come here, let's send our cultural ambassadors all over the world.
Thank you very much, all three panelists, for a wonderful discussion.
I will just take one minute. I want to give you an anecdote. I was in Paris for an international conference, and the Embassy of Pakistan organized a mango festival, bringing in mangoes from Pakistan's different parts. And there were many French men and women. So I said to them, is this the first time you have come to the embassy? And one of the gentlemen said, yes, I have. I said, why haven't you come before? Oh, the embassy organizes these seminars on Kashmir. We're not interested in it. You bring in the best cultural troupe. You bring in the best artists, the best painters, the best musicians from Pakistan, and you will see that we will come in throngs here. That is what my story is, that let us get out of the hard image of Pakistan to the soft image of Pakistan, and that is the purpose for this.
Thank you very much. We have 15 minutes for Q&A, so if I could ask you to raise your hand and please keep your questions brief so that more people can actually ask questions. Yes, ma'am.
This is very interesting, and I know that in the last governments there was a lot of money that has been spent on the soft image of Pakistan. So this is something that has been going on for a long time, and nothing has been done about it. My observation is that why is it that we do not spread this word around? Why is it that, and as Dr. Ishrat has said, that there's so much happening, the festivals, and yet there is no connection. They're working in little pockets. So what I was saying was that our media, that should be playing a major role in promoting our arts and culture all over the world, in Pakistan. So the role of the media, the newspapers, they should be really, really doing a lot more than they are doing at this time. You ask any journalist to come and cover any exhibitions or anything, we have to beg them, and I think that is a really sad situation.
With due apology to Fahd, because he belongs to the media, if a country has its prime time 8 to 11 dominated by talk shows where only the politicians are beginning to fight with each other, forget about having a soft image of Pakistan.
We've just had a very interesting 1-hour session on the media, so I think I'll let this one go.
Hello, sir. Thank you for conducting such a beautiful session. It was really nice listening to you. I'm from Karachi and I own a startup. How do you think like entrepreneurs, Pakistani entrepreneurs, could do their bit in promoting the soft image of Pakistan? Because there is no such that much patronage to the entrepreneurship and startup scene in Pakistan. So do you think we could make a scene out of it? And if we does, from where should we find the patronage?
Okay. Who wants to take that?
I will take that. The tragedy of this country is that we all rely upon patronage. Entrepreneurship and patronage are two different concepts. Entrepreneurs have idea, and people with money will chase them for that idea. One of my students just sold the first startup only after 1 year to one of the other companies for a certain large sum of money, and they retained him as the chief executive to run this. So please do not think. The tragedy here is that every businessman wants some patronage of the government, some SRO in order to survive. You cannot do that. Entrepreneurship and patronage don't go together.
Ji, Zain? Okay, please, ma'am, you go ahead then.
Okay. I don't know how to actually put it forward as a question or as a concern. I feel, we've been talking about the soft side of the Pakistan and all, but I'm talking about the security in terms of that. But I feel there is a set of people with religious set of mind, and they normally appreciate all this dance, singing, and all that stuff. And perhaps that is the reason we have not been able to have dance schools and singing schools in Pakistan, because there's a lot high note area out there and people do not appreciate that. Do you think that government do not support us in those areas because of the fact that we do have religious out there and do not appreciate that? How much do that have to pay with government not supporting us?
I think if I were to put it another way, is soft power being crushed under hard attitudes?
If hard attitudes are because of religion, and I think that the questioner is making that suggestion more or less, am I right? That our religion somehow is in the way of Pakistan's cultural projection. I don't think that there is nothing in that question. That is a valid observation. I do think that the way we interpret religion, it becomes an impediment for cultural expression. But then, we're also the culture of poverty, and the culture of poverty has many dimensions. I have an anecdote which you may not find it directly relevant, but it will highlight the reality that there is a culture of poverty. We had a very bad flood here in 1992, and my district, which is Jhang, was very severely hit. I happened to be in Washington, and I managed to arrange a concert for Nusrat Fateh Ali at the Kennedy Center. Now, Nusrat had performed in Washington many times, but he would be performing in school halls and that sort of thing. This is the first time that we were going to do something at the Kennedy Center, and we had all the major corporations that are present in, that have a presence in Pakistan donating towards this concert, and we also had many senators and congressmen who came to attend it. We had a professional to arrange the event, and just before the curtains went up, he came to me and said, Nusrat Fateh Ali is calling you. So I went just behind the stage, and he was sitting there, and he said, "Ki kawali nahi ho sakdi." So I said, "Ki matlab hai?" So he said, "Mera tabanji natya hai. Tabanji natya kawali nahi ho sakdi." So I asked my Deputy Chief of Mission, Sarwar Naqvi, to immediately get in touch with all the taxi drivers, since there was a large presence of Pakistanis among the taxi drivers in Washington, and they had ferried large numbers of people to the event. I said, please call or the taxi services and tell them that whoever has left the Kennedy Center should be brought back. So we recovered the qawa and we averted disaster somehow. There is this great desire for among the Pakistani people to export themselves to different countries in search of a better living. And if somehow we could project that people take themselves and what they produce or what other people produce that they have collected to start up businesses based on our products, then we would be doing generally very much better, and religion would not be a concern. Religion would not be in the way. So we have to try, as Pakistanis also emphasize, that religion serves very often as a substitute for the hardship and the poverty that a large number of people live in.
You wanted to add something?
Yes, actually, I just want to say that, there are a lot of myths that are circulating. And one of these myths, for example, is that, what you're saying about religion getting in the way. That has not been my experience. Another myth is, there are so many performances, there are dance performances, there are theatre, and you go there and they are packed. And another myth is that Pakistanis don't read, or the reading habit is declining. It is not. At the Karachi Literature Festival, 125,000 people came in 3 days. So, what does that tell you? I think really these are myths. I think if opportunities are provided, people are going to throng to them.
Okay, we have 5 minutes left, so very quickly we have one question from, I think we had one from here. Who has the mic? Ji, please, and one from here, the last one.
My name is Roshan Pathak. I wanted to ask the panelists about art repatriation, the antiquities, the artifacts that lie in the museums, the galleries, the archives in the Western countries. Shouldn't they be moved back to Pakistan? Countries like Greece and Egypt, they're heavily lobbying in the Western countries to get their pieces back in their country. What about Pakistan?
Just a brief answer. Who wants to take it? Getting our artifacts back.
That had been stolen out of Pakistan.
That had been stolen or moved by the Britishers before partition to their museum, like the British Museum at the Met in New York City.
Even Pakistanis have taken them out.
No, not Pakistanis, mostly they've been taken by Britishers.
Well, yes, certainly a lot.
The UNESCO Convention, I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, and the UNESCO Convention they're bound.
Yes, certainly. There's a lot of, many museums, different localities, but principally the British, have objects and heritage that belong to us, and we should be making a very concerted effort to get all of that back. But concurrently, we have to make a very serious effort to prevent things from leaking out of the country, which happens regrettably all the time. I'm aware, for instance, of an ambassador who went to the Taxila Museum, used a diplomatic rank, got a perfect bodhisattva, removed from there, took it to the United States, and it ended up being auctioned by Sotheby's. So this is the sort of scandalous thing that we have to prevent contemporaneously. And also, let us not forget that with our excavation, particularly with Gandhara, we had a team of Italian archaeologists who came and worked there, who took truckfuls of relics and were not prevented in any way. And we have to try and struggle to get all of that stuff back as well.
Okay, last question.
Right, so the impression that I get is that, of course, we all agree that in terms of cultural things we have to offer to the world to showcase and portray our software, there are lots of them. But the impression I get is that it's mainly an image problem and we're not able to project them. But if you, sure, 125,000 people will come to Karachi Lit Fest, But if you look at the number of people in Pakistan, number of books which are sold in Pakistan, if you talk to news producers, they'll say that the number of cultural events and music gatherings in any week is maybe a handful. So the terror, the security thing we talked about, it's not really an image problem, you know. I mean, there are structural constraints which limit this showcase of cultural power, soft power, which we want to. I mean, there are larger forces at work. I mean, we conveniently blame the media or the government for not playing its role. But your comments on what I just said. Do you think the security issue which you said, is it a real problem, or is it just...
Is the problem deeper than the one that we've talked about?
See, you have to separate out the transitional problems from the structural problems. What we are talking about are the structural problems of Pakistan, that from its inception, even before its inception, this is the cradle of the civilization of the Buddhists. The Koreans and the Japanese die to come to visit Kandahar. That is not something to do with the security. Yes, from 2001 to 2015, we are in this transitional problem that we have a security problem. But suppose this is eased out, are we working together in order to overcome those structural problems and difficulties and put Pakistan on the map? That is what we are talking about. We don't deny the intensity of the security problems, but this is a transitory or transitional problem. It is not embedded in Pakistan's DNA.
I think that brings us to the close of the discussion. I'd like to thank Dr. Ishrat Hussain, Begum Abida Hussain, Ms. Ameena Sayyid for a very intellectual discourse. Thank you all for attending.